Welcome back to Designers Business Community Podcast. I'm Eric Lee, and in this episode, I have the honor of interviewing Marcy Sagel of MSA Interiors. She is an expert commercial interior designer. She's been at it for 30 years, but what I love is that she's also very much an entrepreneur. And in this podcast, we're going to dive into a lot of the business tips and secrets that she has to share with us. So now let's welcome Marcy. Welcome back to Designers Business Community Podcast. Today, I am honored to have our featured guest, Marcy Sagel. She is the founder and principal of MSA Interiors, who does a lot of multifamily, commercial housing, senior living. But what's really cool about her is that she's been in the industry and running business for 30 years. She's a serial entrepreneur. So we want to dive into a lot of tips and tricks around building businesses and all of that stuff. So Marcy, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and excited to have a conversation with you about business.
Great. So maybe just, I did a very brief intro about you. I'd love the audience to learn a little bit more about you. So why don't you do a slightly deeper dive into your bio and your background?
Sure. So I've been a designer for a long time, and we specialize in commercial interior design, multifamily, affordable housing, senior housing, student housing, stadiums, and hospitals and healthcare. And all of those sort of evolved over the course of us being in business because we kind of made it through the downturn of '08 and 11. And I realized that I was in one revenue stream and needed to have multiple other revenue streams that we had specialty in, but really had never gone out and gotten clients in those areas.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's I think that's so relevant. I remember the '08 also. I feels like for us, we're going through another kind of uncharted territory of the economy. Maybe why don't you dive a little bit more into that so that we understand how you manage your business through these tough times, because I think it's going to be relevant right now.
Sure. So during that '08-11 period, moving us forward, after we had about 80% of our business was with one very, very large client. And then 20% was sort of sprinkled amongst other clients, but all in the multifamily arena. And the industry just came to a halt for a while. So basically, we decided that we were going to go out and seek other business, and where I had lots of experience previously, just not within my own company. So we went out and we got some other business that we started, and I found someone that hired me to do a project who ended up becoming my mentor. And he was very instrumental. He was an architect, but he was head of a very, very large development company out of California. And he ended up guiding me through the whole process. And we have, to this day, we're still very close. And he was instrumental in teaching me about larger scale multifamily projects that we are known for. And when the economy went down, he gave us those starts to those big jobs. We decided we were going to branch out into other revenue streams. And when we did that, it allowed us to open a lot of doors that we hadn't really anticipated before. And it gave us quite a considerable amount of growth as a business. And we realized that we were leaving a lot of things on the table, and we needed to explore some of those new things. So we offer our own furniture procurement. So we do everything ourselves, including being at the installation. We warehouse it, deliver, select, art, accessories, everything from A to Z. We encompass all of that and offer that as another opportunity to get additional revenue stream from our clients when we're working on a project. So,
Well, that's amazing. I can see how that really helps from a I guess, a risk mitigation perspective because you're diversifying. Um, Now, I've also talked to other designers who believe also in kind of niching down, and I can see the pros and cons to both sides. So I'm very curious for you, like one of the benefits about niching down is that people see you as that specialist.
Mhm.
I guess for you, your niche would be commercial interiors, and then everything's within that, right? How
I
do
would
you
say
find?
our niche is definitely multifamily.
Okay,
If I had to niche it down, we have been in that segment for 30 years. We know it very, very well. And with this economy, everyone's looking at how to value engineer these large
right,
scale projects. And we've had so much experience in that field that we're very, very good at value engineering materials because we work with so many manufacturers in creating materials for multifamily price points. So I think we have that segment down. We know that segment very well. And when people are looking to, we always work within a budget. So we know how to get that budget down and help the client look at different ways to save money. So
right. Okay, so that's great, and I can see why that's so valuable because of that depth of experience, and people seek you out for that probably, right?
yeah.
Yeah. What would your perspective be for the audience who's just coming on board, setting up their business and stuff? What's your perspective on how niche do you want to go? I'd love to hear your perspective of that.
So I think when you're a new entrepreneur, new designer, starting your firm, I think it's great to have a niche, but you also want to make sure that you have other streams of revenue that are flowing in depending on the economy, like it is now. So I think it's really good to diversify initially and
Mhm.
open up some categories for yourself and to see what you really like to do, see what you're getting passion out of, and and to allow your clients to flow in those different categories so that you're not just defining yourself to one specific look or one specific type.
Right. Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think generally that is the journey of a designer, whether you're working for a firm, probably less control that, but if you're starting your own business, that tends to be the journey, isn't it? You go and you see what you really like, and then you pick a lane, and then you kind of really bet on that one.
Exactly. I think the lane selection, when we have designers and we get around a round table and we kind of talk about that, the thing that I've noticed is that some people get stuck in a lane they're not necessarily thrilled with.
Right.
So what I say is figure out where you want to be. Do you want to be a full scale designer working on project from A to Z? Or do you feel that you just have one segment that you're good at? And if you're just good at one segment, then maybe if you're going to have a business, maybe you pair with someone else that's good at the other segment that you're not loving or passionate about. And so that you, so to speak, two halves make a whole. Two
Yes.
different people with two different expertise come together and they make a whole. And that's something that you could market. Because what I've learned in training so many people is that not everybody is good at every single thing. So I have a whole lot of designers here, and everyone has a different strong point. Okay.
Right.
And that could be what I think is the strong point. But what I've noticed is we do what we call the quadrant exercise. And
Okay.
we ask everyone in the office from 1 to 4, 1 being the things they like to do the most, and 4 being the things they like to do the least. And I do it as well. Everyone to kind of write in a list of things in each of those so that I can understand what everyone else might like. So even though you're good at something doesn't mean you love doing that. So I
Yes.
think that exercise helps us to understand and also helps the actual person to really think about what they like doing and what
Right.
they feel like they know less of. And then to sit down and talk and maybe decide, okay, well, you had these things in your fourth quadrant, which
Yeah.
tells me you either don't like them or you're not comfortable with them. So, my question would be if you say you don't like rendering and it's in your fourth quadrant, tell me, do you feel like you need more skills at rendering or do you just really don't like it? Okay, so it helps me
Right.
to kind of gauge how we can move that out of the fourth quadrant and either move it up to a 1 or a 2, or we could then get someone to work with you to kind of hone your skill sets better. So it's a good exercise that I like to do within my own company from a team.
No, that's great, and I like how simple you broke that down. I actually, as a business coach, I come in and I help people assess that a lot, because it's not about pushing all of your people into where you want them to go. It's more about, okay, these are the cards that you're dealt with. How do we look at the gaps that we have, and maybe someone else can fill that. So that quadrant is a very simple way of doing it. What I teach people is, if you can get the majority of your people to be doing what they love and what they're good at, that's their happy place. That's their zone. And they'll come to work every single day doing that.
Exactly.
That's the secret to team culture, right? And building.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just touched on the other thing. I just came from, I love to go to conferences, and I love to go to like entrepreneur conferences, and I love to go to learning events where I'm just expanding my knowledge and growing from other entrepreneurs. So I just came back from a conference, and they had a big speaker. The speaker's a serial entrepreneur. He's written all kinds of books. And basically my biggest nugget from that was, your people are your most important commodity. Every single person in your company, you want to nurture, you want to grow them, and you want to figure out where is their happy place, what makes them happy, what drives them, and how can you feed that drive. And one thing that I've learned is that, not everybody is happy in the same lane. People have lots of different skill sets, lots of different personality needs, lots of different indexes, so to speak, personality indexes of how they work. And so when we're building our teams within our company for each job, you want to kind of mix those up so that people bring different things to the plate. You may have a person that's super creative, and then you have another person that's super process oriented. Okay. And if you bring them together, you get an amazing team of 2 designers with 2 different skill sets. And so we do look at that, and I pick up all of these great ideas from all of these wonderful conferences that I go to that aren't necessarily designer based. They're just entrepreneurial based. And they help me to think about how I'm working on things, or how I might be able to change my mindset internally to kind of focus on getting a better product and having happier employees.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you touch on a really good point that I want to dive into, because I remember my early days with my design firm. A lot of the learning was done probably in the first 5 years as a designer. But after that, the growth for me personally is, how do I become a better business owner, an entrepreneur, a better manager, and then leader? Because those are 2 different things.
Yeah.
And I love that journey, because design school never taught us that. So I seeked out mentors. I seeked out people to teach me. I went to conferences like you and did a lot of personal development, read business books, and I'm still growing to this day. But I want to hear your philosophy on it, because you've been at it for 30 years. What was your journey like from a designer and a business owner?
Yeah, well, obviously I was a neophyte as a business owner. I do come from a family of entrepreneurs, multi-generational. I have both of my brothers are entrepreneurs. My father was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. So I do think that definitely feeds into, sort of the just pick your lane and go for it kind of thing. I wasn't afraid. And if I sit around at a table with a group of friends, an entrepreneurial mindset is a little bit different than working for someone. And there's nothing wrong with either one. It's just, you have to be able to risk a lot when you're an entrepreneur, and you're risking having a solid job and a solid paycheck, obviously. And so what you want to do is you want to, like you said, read as much as you can. There's so many wonderful books out there that you can gain so many different things from. And I joined an entrepreneurial group regionally that I got very involved in, which has been an enormous help. No one's in my industry, but I
Okay.
have someone, they place you in a forum group and you meet with that forum group once a month. And we have a whole group of people that I can pull all kinds of wonderful informational things from. So one of the guys in my group, he has 4,000 employees. So he is what I call the mission and team expert. He is a
Okay.
people expert. He is so good at culture and mission, and I've learned so much from him. And then I have another forum mate that is head of a huge construction company that he started, and his is about procedure, processes, approvals, and quick action. And like me, he has the same philosophy. It's all about the customer experience and the relationship that you have with the customer. Because
Right.
the relationship that I have with our customers and our business development person and our operations person, those relationships are ongoing. We get work over and over and over from them. They refer us all the time. It's a wonderful thing that's taken a long time to figure out, that you're working, every client's project is only as good as their last project. So you want to make every project great, and you want to make it come in on budget, and you want to make sure that every time you do a project that the client is very happy with the end result. So engaging them in the process all along makes them feel like they've made the decisions. So we've really buttoned that whole
Mm.
procedure down so that the client is so involved in the decision making that they've come to the finish line as a designer, just as we have. They've made those decisions with us, and we've crafted how we present to them for that to happen. So that would
Right.
be one of the things that I would say is so important in growing your project base.
Right. For sure. Okay. So if we think about the newer business owners, you and I have been at it for a while, but let's bring it back to someone who's maybe not just starting, but 3 to 5 years. And there's things that they don't know that we know now. What are
Right.
some tips you would give for business owners, designers building their business at that stage?
So the first thing I would say is join some networking groups in your industry. And if you're a designer, ULI is a great organization. It's international, Urban Land Institute. Pick some different groups that will allow you to network and meet different people and developers, individuals, different people that you could potentially work with, depending on your segment of business design. That's number one. Number two, join any entrepreneur group you can get into, even on a smaller scale, so that you can learn from other people and other people's mistakes.
Right.
Because I would say, I don't know about you, Eric, but I definitely learned through the school of hard knocks, just
Yes.
experiencing problems and fixing them. And if
Right.
I knew about some of these groups that were out there, I probably would have made many less mistakes, and probably, been able to forward my business much sooner at a quicker pace.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. And I totally agree with that. That's partly why I started Starfish Coaching, is to help people shortcut their learning curve. And even this podcast is so that we can share valuable tips like this, so that you don't have to do that. Just tap into those who's been ahead and have seen that path, right?
Yeah. And, again, don't be afraid to ask someone else who does what you do to be your mentor, to help
Hmm.
you, to call upon you, to ask all the questions that you may not be able to ask other people, and
Right.
and forge a bond, and have that bond propel you into being an entrepreneur. Um, I try to help anybody in our industry that needs any help. I think there's so many questions that everyone has: pricing, contracts, all of the legal stuff, what you are needing to insure and how to insure it, all of the different questions that come up on all of the things that we do. we've learned them over the course of time. And I think when you're new to the business, take an accounting course. You've got to know your numbers inside and out.
Right.
Even though you're a designer and that's your core passion of what you're doing, if you're going to own a company, you need to know numbers and you need to know what your profits are. You need to know what your net margins are. You need to know, how much revenue do I need to bring in and how much can I pay myself? All of these things you can learn through books and different online things that you can do very inexpensively. But the best thing you can do is to find someone that can help mentor you or coach you through some of these different difficult tasks of starting a business.
Right. That is so true. And actually, I want to dive a little bit into that because I find it's a common, I don't know the word for it, but common misconception
Mhm.
for newer designers out there building a business. It's a lonely journey. Let's admit that because there's business things that you can't talk to your staff about or your people
Right,
about. But then you feel that, oh, I can't reach out to my fellow colleagues because they're competitors, right?
right.
So, and I think that's where the mindset shift has to change because I'm an abundance mindset person myself, and I honestly believe that the majority of people out there are like that, especially those who have been in the industry for a while. We get to a point where we want to give back. I'm
Yep.
at that stage now, and I mentor people, and anytime that there's advice needed, I want to lift our industry up as a whole because that's what's happening. So as a new designer, yeah, I think your tip is great. Don't feel scared or hesitant to reach out to, if it's in the same market and you really feel like, oh, they're competitors and you don't approach them, reach out to someone else in another market, another city, right?
Agreed.
Just so much commonality there that I'm sure the majority of people will want to help.
Right. And I know you're based in Vancouver and I'm based in the US East. Pick someone in a different country that, to mentor you or to help you walk through some of the typical problems because they're the same across the board, no
Yes.
matter where you are. So typically we see the same business problems and the same mistakes that people make. And so I think it's really useful to, try to get someone or there's so many like things online that you can do as a group where you can sort of hit upon the group and ask different questions. But I think initially having the right coach and or business group to guide you is probably the best thing you could do for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some great tips. Thank you so much for that. Is there any other tips you want to leave us with or any other topics you want to dive into?
I think, do things that challenge you. Be on a journey of growth, no matter how many years you've been in business or how few years you've been in business. Create a challenge for yourself to keep that journey going and the passion going because, everyone gets stagnant, everyone gets bored, and it's up to you to generate something that makes you excited. No one else is going to do it for you. And you
Right.
got to get out there and really make it challenging for yourself.
For sure. That is such a great tip. I believe in the same because if you're not changing and evolving, the world is going around you. So you're being left behind. It's as simple
Yeah,
as that, isn't it?
sure is. Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Marcy. How can our audience get in contact with you?
Sure. So I have my website is msainteriors.com. And soon we'll be launching some training projects that we're doing for designers. And we'll post that on our website as well when we're ready. We're just not there yet. We're creating them as we speak. But again, it's msainteriors.com. And you can send us a message to info or to myself or Mary Beth, and we'll be happy to respond and let us know how we can help you in any way.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom there, Marcy, and all the best to you. Thanks for coming on our podcast.
Thank you, Eric. I'm grateful. Thanks again. Alrighty. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Marcy Sagel. She shared many nuggets of wisdom that we all can take away as business owners. She's a designer herself, but she's very much learned how to build her business the right way. So I hope those nuggets will help you in your business building journey. If you have questions for Marcy or myself, leave it in the comments and I'll make sure that it gets answered. Otherwise, make sure you're subscribed so you can catch our next podcast interview. I'm Eric Lee with Designers Business Podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.